So the Hanakat stretch series starts with what is called the four corners practice. And there's several ways of coming into this, and I'm just going to give you a couple of variations as we go with this. So you can work with it with your legs straight, um, and therefore you're going to feel some of those little pulls in your lower back. And in this case, well, then you would feel into each hip by, for example, if I go into my left hip, by just slightly taking my leg up into gravity and then easing it off, and then going, of course, to the other side and doing the same kind of thing. It probably is a little more focused around the core if you have your knees bent, and then you can start to feel how you drop into that hip if you start to, once again, on the left side, just start to take your left foot a little bit up into gravity and feel that lightening of your foot on the floor and how it takes your hip more solidly into the floor. And then just let it ease off. And then just coming to the right side and trying the same kind of thing of just taking your leg a little bit up into gravity, feeling how it starts to bring the weight across to the right side, and then letting ease off. Now, as we start to drop into this, it's always useful to come to some basic orienting question. So it could be something like why am I here, or how am I here? In other words, what is the intention I'm bringing to this? Because inevitably you are going to come into these movements as if they're an exercise, as if there's something that maybe has a little bit of an underlying intention to get rid of the aches and pains, the stiffnesses in our body. And so to consider the possibility that as you enter into this, your intention is going to slowly move you more to just inhabiting yourself as you are in this moment, to feeling how you are in this moment, then allows you to start to see what the unfolding of dropping into yourself is more, and what movements come out of that process. So it becomes a shifting of intention from how we typically would start by just noticing where you are and then how your body responds to these different stimuli. So if we come to the other two parts of the four corners of the shoulders, so come to the left shoulder, and there's several ways again you can drop into this. So the first one is just to bring your arm up into gravity a bit, just as you were with your leg, and to feel how that starts to bring more weight into that shoulder blade, and to really start to explore the sensations of the contact. It's really easy to kind of feel what's in the shoulder blade itself, but it doesn't necessarily orient towards a surface. So just to feel into how you know that surface is there starts to really initiate a relational experience between you and the world that you're in. How much can that shoulder find the floor? And then just watching the easing off. You'll hear me talk as we go through this whole series about how important the easing off is. So just to kind of feel what happens as you let down, and then bring your attention across to the right shoulder and start to notice how can I find the floor more, the sensations of floor more, as I start to bring my arm a little bit up into gravity, and to feel how that starts to affect my shoulder. How much does it know the floor is there? What other parts of me start to try to engage with this? And are there parts that I can feel are being held out of the movement? Perhaps something in your torso, your neck, your lower back, your knees, and just to kind of do a scan through your body and see what parts of you might be wanting to start to participate and have been held out of that movement. So that question of how does it want to go becomes really useful around just allowing the different parts of you to engage. And then an alternative for the arms is to bring them straight up into the air as if your fingers were pointing toward the ceiling, So now the full of gravity is coming straight down through your arms, and then noticing what happens if you take your left arm and start to lengthen through it, as if you were sort of letting an amoeba protoplasm surge go through your arm, so it lightens the pressure on the floor, and just feel how that affects your torso. Perhaps the other shoulder blade gets affected, and then letting that ease back off. And then the alternative to that is to go down into the floor, and you can feel how just following that shoulder blade more directly into the floor affects the shoulder blade, the sense of the arm, the torso, and perhaps even the sense of how the right arm and shoulder are engaged with the floor. And then just slowly letting that ease off. So if you just notice how far you've got with this now, so that's always the third piece, is like the moving into the movement, the letting down out of the movement, and then the just noticing what you have, which sometimes can be the biggest part of the movement, is just letting the reorganization happen. So now if we come to the right shoulder and just feel what happens if you start to lengthen out through that arm, and how that affects the other shoulder, the torso, the pelvis, and just the neck, and just see how your body wants to move into that. How does it want to go? And then just letting that ease off, noticing the process of coming back to the resting place. And once you're in that kind of neutral starting place, which may now feel different than it was before, then increasing the pressure into that right shoulder blade and watching what happens through the rest of your body as you explore that stronger engagement of your shoulder blade with the floor. And then just letting that ease off. And then you can just let your arms come back down so that they're resting on the floor wherever they want to be. Perhaps even you might want to test and see what happens with your body, with your legs, if you let your legs straighten out as well, and just kind of revisit whatever contact there is through your back, however much arching there is in your lower back, how much your neck and head allow the floor to be there. So that these are points of reference that we can come back to throughout this process. So each of these movements is something it could be done by itself. This could be half an hour of just exploring this alone.